We are a growing global movement of over 50,000 young people. The Youth in Landscapes Initiative was born when a group of forestry students and young agricultural professionals came together, recognizing the need to combine forces and give voice to youth working in landscapes around the world. 6 years on, we are a thriving and diverse community offering workshops, mentorship, training, and networking. Whether online or in person, the Youth in Landscapes Initiative programs connect, support, and inspire young people to step into courageous leadership, a leadership that breaks barriers and brings people together to act differently. Join the community, be part of the change.
Hello, everybody. My name is Barkin Joshua from Lagos, Nigeria, and this is welcome to the last day of the Youth Daily Show.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Renata Alvarenga. I'm from Brazil, and we are your hosts for the third and final day of the Youth Daily Show.
On behalf of the Youth and Landscapes Initiative and the Global Landscapes Forum, we are sending out a huge welcome to you all. We're also sending to you all our warmest wishes for health and safety in these challenging times of COVID-19.
So as I mentioned, this is the last day of our Youth Daily Show and also the last day of GLF Fund 2020. There has been a lot going on in the last few days, but I think the most beautiful thing, aside from being in front of a screen virtually, is that we could also feel a sense of community. Yesterday, we learned about food sovereignty on the Youth Daily Show and technology, and on Wednesday, on the first day of the Youth Daily Show, we had a really amazing debate about local food versus vegan food, which was really awesome. And today, on the last day, we're here to explore all of you the concept of food waste. We have invited two amazing young chefs who are pushing the boundaries of how we treat our food.
During the next 30 minutes, you'll have the chance to listen to Max Lamanna and Louis Mabulo discussing how they manage as professional chefs and foodies to tackle the issue of food waste. It is so important that we reconnect to how our food is produced and how important it is to be considerate about it for people and our planet.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this session. Food, as you all know, is a great expression of love and culture, and it should always include the love for our planet as well, I think. So we also want to hear from you, our audience, on this last session. So please, if you post on social media, use the hashtag Generation Restoration and hashtag GLFBond2020 and share on your social media what's the most wasted household item in your country or your town.
Yes. So please do share on social media as just stated. And without further ado, let's find out what our chefs have to say. What are their favorite tips on how to be a low waste foodie at home? And before that, we should watch a video provided by the Food and Agriculture Organization on the amount of food that is produced but never reaches our plate. Sounds interesting.
Hello, everyone. Hello to the people joining from the Huva app. Hello to the people joining from the official Global Landscapes Forum Instagram. Happy World Environment Day to everyone. Welcome to the third day of the Youth Daily Show. Today we are diving into food waste. Food waste is not just a waste of money. Food waste is an inconsiderate waste of valuable resources that were needed to produce, transport, and cook this food. It is a matter of environmental and social justice for all of us. We all need and most of us love food, but we need to learn how to treat our waste. Being able to feed ourselves with dignity is a fundamental human right. But we all recognize that having the privilege to choose how much and what we eat should be used to learn how to stop eating the planet. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome with me today our two amazing guests, Max and Louise and Max, that are joining us to share their perspectives on food waste. So, Louise, we are very happy to have you here. Could you please tell us more about yourself on how you went through this journey of becoming a chef and an entrepreneur and environmentalist, and what's your relationship with food waste?
Thank you so much, Irini. First of all, happy World Environment Day to all. Today's a spectacular day to be talking about this topic. So first of all, hi, I'm Louise. I'm a chef, farmer, and an entrepreneur. And I really find food waste to be such an urgent topic because we need to understand how much time, effort, and skill it takes to bring food to the table and how much we can save and help others by understanding the system of food production. As a food producer myself, I can tell you that by preventing food wastage, we can ensure that many months of farming, production, planning, logistics, and simply effort don't go to waste. And we can save our own money, our own time, and our environment in the effort. So really, I hope that through this kind of session, many people will feel the need to use up all their food and prevent food waste at home.
This is so inspiring, Louise. We also hope the same too. So now let's go to Max. Max, I know that you have so many projects related to zero food waste, to how to reduce our food waste. So would you like to share your journey towards where you are today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And hello, everyone around the world. Happy World Environment Day, though I believe World Environment Day is every day. I'm Max Lamanna. I'm a zero waste chef and author, food lover, and my journey started when I was born. My father bought his first restaurants when I was just born, and grew up in his restaurants and have been surrounded by food ever since I was a kid. And it wasn't until maybe 3 or 4 years ago where I was noticing the food that I was throwing away and where's this food going? So a light bulb went off in my head and I started questioning everything that I was doing. Spent so much time around food and started questioning myself, where does food waste actually go? And what happens when we do waste it? And how is that impacting our lives, our money, and those around us, the people in our neighborhood, our country, and around the world?
Well, that's great to see all your journey. And that's great that you both are making connections. It's not just food waste. Food waste is connected with all the other environmental challenges that we're facing. So now moving on, I think our audience, including myself, would like to learn more in regards to how to handle food waste at home as a consumer, but also in a restaurant as a chef. Are these two different completely? Are they similar? So this time, let's start with you, Max. And then Louise, please feel free to react on Max's thoughts and tell us what you think too.
What's the question? I know it's it's full on.
How can we as a consumer at home treat food waste, but also how can we in a restaurant, in a professional place, treat food waste? What would be your advice?
Yeah, I think it all starts with education. It's, this may be your first time. This may be your first time hearing the term food waste or understanding the environmental impact of food waste and what happens when food ends up going to a landfill. Now that's different from composting food. Composting is a whole whole nother system, and it's a more regenerative circular economy where we live right now in a linear economy around the world. I think that's fair to say that, you know, most countries, we live in a linear economy, and some countries are now coming and tuning into and becoming more focused towards becoming a more circular economy and finding ways to repurpose, reuse, reinvent, and reduce. From a home level, here I can say this, being here in London, over 420,000 tons of meals is wasted every single year in the UK. That is, you know, the food that's left on your plate, that's your leftovers that you've stored in the fridge and you forgot, you know, to use them. Just 420,000 tons. Around the world on a global scale, 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted. That's roughly around 1/3 of the food that we grow for human consumption that is wasted. Now that's roughly the size of China to grow the food that is never eaten. So we as a consumer have a huge responsibility to face this head on and to make the changes that we need to make. So how to do that? How can we do that? It's first, I think, simply educating yourself, understanding what happens to food when it's wasted. Where is this food coming from? Am I buying, you know, this product? Maybe it's strawberries, maybe it's avocado, maybe it's an object. Here in the UK, we don't grow avocado. So am I looking to supply? And if I want an avocado, am I looking for the avocado that is sourced locally? And the closest place that for an avocado to be sourced locally is in Spain. So it's knowing where your food is coming from is going to make a huge environmental impact. But I think it's all about making those small changes first. This is a very difficult time around the world, and we can only do the best we can. So I think the first and foremost thing that we can do, and I think Louise can agree, is educating yourself with what you already have, shopping smarter, creating a list when you go to the shops, buying less, buy the food, buy wonky veg, buy the ugly produce. As you probably saw in that video, the little girl, she was disgusted by the weird shaped sweet potato. It's buying the produce that is typically deemed as ugly and deemed as, you know, not perfect. We live in a system that I think everything needs to be uniformed and it needs to be perfect. And it may not be the same where you are in the world, but definitely here in the UK, everything, you go into a supermarket and all the apples are lined up perfectly and they all look the same. Nature is imperfect. We are all imperfect and we need to embrace that.
I think adding a bit onto what Max just said, I think you covered it really well. I think in terms of approach to food waste, the best thing we can do is to prevent food waste on the onset, just to begin with. For cooks at home, I think, and especially for restaurants, the best thing people could do to prevent that is food preservation techniques. You know, it's the same for at home and in restaurants. You would try canning, making jams and compotes, and again, buy the ugly vegetables, buy the ugly fruits, and those are usually the more delicious ones. Here in the provinces, and where I live in the Philippines, we don't usually have like markets, you know, supermarket things where everything is completely similar. Instead, we would probably want to buy from local farmers, from your green market, and source everything locally and seasonally as much as possible. Because if you get things locally, you reduce your carbon footprint and you're supporting local economy. You ensure that produce from the market that's locally produced gets purchased and used in time and in season instead of going to waste. And especially for if you're like watching as a professional and you have an establishment or a restaurant, you know, restaurants are quite one of the main contributors to food waste. I think that if you start to manage your food waste well and you're transparent to your customer base about how you source your food and how you purchase your food and how you manage it, then you can kind of address a whole new customer base of really socially aware and environmentally aware generation of buyers. And it's kind of your value proposition for you if you manage your food waste well and purchase sustainably.
Wow, this is great. I personally really get inspired by both of you in the sense of that you both said that you have the power as consumers to change how we eat, to change how we treat food waste. And this for me is perfect. And the advice on buying local, buying the ugly foods, buying the foods that nobody else would buy, I think it's a really nice message for our audience. So in my view, going to zero food waste, less food waste is not about perfection, but it's about the journey. So I would like to ask you both, as two people that are very conscious about their food consumption, very conscious about their food waste, what are still the foods you see in your household being waste? And what are you doing with those foods? Please, Louise, feel free to answer first, and then Max. Thank you.
All right. Well, here in my kitchen, I grow my own food. So I try to prevent waste as much as possible. And when we have really plentiful harvests, my most wasted foods are usually fruits and vegetables that don't get cooked up in time. And of course, my advice is extending their shelf life by fermenting, pickling, salting, freezing, or drying them. Freezing especially is like hitting the pause button on maturing fruits and vegetables. And that's really useful because it's accessible to anyone who has a refrigerator or kitchen. But drying them is also really useful because you can keep them for an indefinite amount of time. What I usually have the most waste, and I feel so guilty about because they're expensive and hard to grow, is herbs. Now, they get wasted so much in my kitchen because they don't last long. And what I do is I freeze them or turn them into delicious pesto sauces or purees, and I just place them in the freezer or put them in a jar. And I have something ready to go whenever I need to cook a dish like immediately or on the spot. So it's very useful if you manage food waste, because especially at home levels or in restaurant levels, because you can make these extra special menus or upgrades to your existing recipes.
Wow, that's great. And what about you, Max? Sorry, please go on.
No, it's fine. I love the idea of keeping your menu kind of flexible, and you make what you can and what you already have, instead of trying to continue to keep that menu with all the items that you have. So being flexible with it is a really fun way, and I love seeing that when I go into restaurants. I spent nearly 15 years working in restaurants, and the amount of food waste I've seen is unbelievable. Just because something is the wrong shape, or there's a bit of a blemish, or there was a dent or a bruise, and it just baffles me that we're quick to throw away things because of the way it looks, and we can't do that anymore. The amount of the food that I typically waste. Now, I have a compost bin at home. I've requested one. So if you're in the UK, you could request, and I'm sure you could probably do this in your country, and this is a step that I like to share with everyone, is to speak up and vote and act. Speak to your Congress, speak to your government, speak to your local authorities, and request and act for food waste recycling programs. If you don't have it already, the neighborhood that I live in, we didn't have a food waste recycling program. I spoke up. I spoke to my authorities, contacted them constantly, and eventually they said, okay, fine, we're going to supply you with a food waste recycling program. So now, not just my building and the home I live in, but everyone down my street and the next streets over have food waste recycling. So it's, wow, I did something, and I think that's where I feel empowered, is that I'm one person, I'm able to speak up, and that one voice is able to expand and reach others. So the food that I throw away typically is the odd bits and ends to certain vegetables. And with those vegetables, I typically save them, place them in my freezer. Like Louis says, like the freezer is a great place to store and lock in those nutrients. Now, when we look at food scraps, we may see them as there's no use to them anymore. We've used the bit that we actually need, but those scraps, like the peelings of potatoes, the stems to the kale stems, the broccoli stem, the seeds to different ingredients, the onion skins. Those ingredients we could still use and make things out of that. So let's say you have those ingredients, you have those vegetables, those skins, you can make a veg stock. So keep those in your freezer, take them out, place them on a pot with some water and boil it on a low heat for a few minutes. And now you make your own veggie stock. Now you don't need to go out to the supermarket, spend money on a store-bought veggie stock. You've made your own from the food waste that you had. It's finding a use for those things. You mentioned herbs. Herbs are one of the things you typically throw away. And I like the idea of like storing them in your freezer. I started chopping up my herbs that were like wilting and going bad, and they were near the end of its life. I chopped them up, placed them in ice cube trays with olive oil, and froze them. Another tip I like is regrowing your own herbs. So I started regrowing, I'm not sure, can you see that? The roots to the mint. Now those roots have just come in the last week. I've just taken the mint that I had from the store that were just sprigs, remove some of the leaves and then place them in water. And after 2 weeks, you start to see roots. Now I'm able to plant those roots in soil. Then I can have endless mint, basil, coriander, spring onions. And now I have basil that I've regrown from scraps. So saving money, saving time, energy. And now my home smells like a herb garden. So it's about doing those small things. It's taking the time, be creative with what you have, and doing those small steps, taking those small steps every single day, because eventually you'll get to maybe where I am or where Louise is, or you'll get even further past us along this journey. And it is about the journey, like you said.
Thank you. Wow, this is great. And for me, it's great because you both touched upon things that I can do at home. For example, make my own pesto, grow my own herbs, but also it was really important that you said you can give back to the community, speak up for the community and help everyone come to this journey with us. This is perfect. So now I would like to invite our audience to come for a little game with us. I want to invite our audience on Instagram, but also on Whova, to tell me some of their most wasted ingredients. And I'm gonna ask Max and Louise to tell us what maybe we can do with them, maybe a recipe, maybe a homemade remedy, I don't know, we'll see. And while I'm waiting for the audience to respond, I want a very quick answer from both of you on a very simple question. So Louise, I'm gonna start with you. I did a bit of research on you, and I found out that you have won an amazing award for the best dessert in Asia. And I know you also have the Cacao Project, which is an amazing concept. So I want to ask you, do you have a very quick, easy favorite recipe for perfect, sustainably sourced cacao dessert?
Okay, I am so excited about that question because I handle food waste so much here at home. When I have produce, I have to use them up and creatively find a way to, I don't know, serve it to people and make it look good. So I think one of them would definitely be a bread and butter pudding. This recipe I make all the time. I make it with a fruit compote. So when I have a fruit compote, it's basically any fruits that I have, whether it's been frozen or dried. I put it in a pot. I put some, I don't know, whiskey or gin or brandy in it. And then I just boil that until it's, kind of like, it's just like a sauce basically. And I serve that on top of bread and butter puddings. So the bread is usually stale bread that I get from the fridge. Now food here doesn't last very long because in my environment, we are 100% humidity. It is hot and it is like wet. The air is wet. So they would go stale or mold really quickly. So I keep them in the fridge. And once I need them, and the staler the bread, the better, I would take them out, put them in like some milk or eggs or whatever you have, put some chocolate in the middle, and then serve it with the fruit compote. And I usually serve it up with coconut cream to make a really nice, easy custard.
Oh, now I'm getting hungry. And I'm gonna do the same question almost to you, Max. So I know you have written an amazing cookbook. So I'm a very big fan, especially when it comes to pickling onions and stuff like that. But I would like to ask you, what is your favorite easy, zero waste breakfast? What would you go in the morning? You have leftovers in the fridge, you put them in the pan. What are you cooking?
Yeah, interesting. Depends on what do we want. We want sweet, we want savory. I'll give you two. If we're gonna do something sweet, my favorite fruit in the morning is bananas, or are bananas. And bananas are one of the most wasted fruits around the world. if one banana is smaller than everything else that is in that bunch of bananas that are growing, the producers don't have time to pull that one banana off. They have this production that just keeps going. So they end up throwing that whole bunch of bananas. There may be 20 or 30 bananas on that bunch that they end up just chucking away and throwing away. So eat your bananas and don't let them go to waste. So one thing I like to do, if they're going brown and they're getting spotty, is to mash them up in a bowl, add some flour, add your favorite flour. I like using all-purpose flour or wholemeal flour, a bit of baking soda, and some plant-based milk. Mash that and whip it all together, and then you're making pancakes. So you could take this pancake recipe, take Louise's fruit compote, add it together, add some maple syrup, maybe some yogurt. Another vegetable or fruit that is, or no, it's a vegetable, is spinach. And something I like to do for breakfast too with spinach is getting my greens and my vegetables earlier in the day, so then I can keep track of what I eat throughout the day. And that's to make a chickpea pancake. Adding and blending the spinach that is going soft or it doesn't look as fresh anymore. Be sure to smell, touch, taste, and make sure that it's safe to eat. And that's another thing, is making sure that the use by date, the sell by date, the best before date, do your research, understand what those terms mean, because most food ends up going to waste because people are confused by those terms. So making a chickpea pancake with the spinach, blending the spinach with some water and adding that to like another savory pancake.
Wow. Okay, I'm definitely gonna grab lunch after that. Unfortunately, I can't cook, but I'll find something. So let's see what our audience said. Okay, I have so many ingredients here. I think I would go for two of them, which also is a great question for me. One of them is bread, and I know that bread is one of the most wasted items anyway. And the other ingredient is potato peels. And let's go for a sweet one as well, mushy apples. So you can feel free to be creative with it. You don't have to come with one recipe with all of them, just with ideas. Let's start with you, Louise. What would you do with bread that is going for waste, potato peels, and mushy apples?
Well, I couldn't possibly make a recipe with all three ingredients, but I think with mushy apples, I had some the other day, and what I do is I make an oat bake. So really any mushy or like spoiling fruit, you cut out whatever is not good anymore. You get the sweet parts, and then you mix it in with some simple syrup or basically kind of any juice you have. Mix it with some oats, a little bit of, say, coconut oil and some coconut sugar, and then put it in the oven for like 45 minutes, and you'll have this kind of flapjack crumble that's absolutely delicious, and it's easy. It takes no effort. There's hardly any dishes for washing. You just put it in that one casserole. And with bread, the bread and butter pudding I said earlier is really useful, but you can also make kind of like bruschettas out of bread that you have. And you can kind of revive bread. So a lot of people don't realize, when they think that bread is kind of like, once they knock it on a surface and it's really hard, they're going to chuck it out. But if you kind of run it under cold water, put it back in the oven, it's still revivable. So you can make bruschettas out of that, or kind of make a casserole out of it and mix it with, say, tomato sauces, some whatever vegetables or herbs you have, put it on top. And it's a really easy recipe that you can just basically make up at home.
Okay, that's great. And Max, I want to change a little bit the question about you, because I've been following you on Instagram. I'm seeing you're cooking a lot of bread. You're baking a lot of bread this past few days. So I would like you to focus on bread and tell me, what do we do when we make or buy bread and then forget about it? It's starting going bad. Yeah. What would you do with it? Come up with some recipe or something like that.
Sure. Just alone in the UK, we waste over 20, in the UK alone, we waste over 20 million slices of bread every single day. And with those 20 million slices of bread, you can make 5 sandwiches for the 2 million people who are facing food insecurity. So it makes no sense that here in the UK, we're wasting all this food and it's going to waste, where you can divert that and feed those in need. It's a real systemic issue where we need to change policy in our government. But it all starts with us too. So we need to become more aware of the food that we're wasting. With bread, if you have a loaf of bread that you've come home with, or you're making your own loaf of bread and you're not going to get to it in time, I like to save my loaf of bread, or save half of it, wrap it up tightly, and place it in the freezer. Freezer is a great place to store your food and to store leftovers. So keep your bread in the freezer, and when you're ready to eat, take it out, pop it into your toaster, warm it up on the stove, place it in your oven. Do whatever you can, because everyone loves warm, crusty bread. And that's just, I think, probably my number one and top tip is to make friends with your freezer and store your leftover bread there.
Wow, I honestly could go on with that forever, but people are nagging me, telling me, we're running out of time, we're running out of time. And honestly, we have so many questions from the audience, but I want to say I sincerely hope we can have a chat again with GLF, a longer chat later in the next few months. I'm sure that with both of you have a lot of things to cover. Would you like to just say one sentence, your biggest tip about food waste, your biggest wish for food waste? Just a little tip. Both of you. Louise, let's start with you. Louise, you're muted.
There we go. I couldn't possibly compress this into one sentence. But as a producer and grower of food myself, I cannot begin to tell you what magic it is to grow food from soil and water and air. And if you know and understand that process, really, it becomes unthinkable to waste food. And the same goes for any food that comes your way. They came a long way just to make it to your kitchen. In fact, if we didn't waste any food, we could feed 5 people instead of 4. And food waste consists of up to 8% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. So imagine the impact you're doing by just saving food, even at a consumer level or at a restaurant level. If you own a restaurant or a place, you're doing the world a great service.
Thank you. And Max?
I'll keep it nice and short. One small change today will make and create a bigger impact tomorrow. So make the change today. Don't wait till tomorrow, because we need change now.
Thank you. Wow, these are great words from both of you. Thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoyed today. And I'm sure everybody's very inspired. I know I am. Thank you both deeply, and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. That was such a great session. I'm also really inspired, as Irene mentioned. And I think to respect food is to respect life, right? So it's breakfast time here in Brazil. So I'm definitely going to try some of the recipes, maybe the banana pancakes that Max mentioned. And thank you, Max and Louise, for the great talk, and Irene for hosting the session.
Yes, it was really an amazing conversation, and I really enjoyed the conversation about bread, because I am personally guilty of wasting bread a lot, and I would sure apply all of these advice to my everyday life. And I think generally we can all do better when it comes to food waste, and Max and Louis just proved that to us. Great.
Yeah, definitely. So guys, that was a wrap for day 3 of the Youth Daily Show. We've been here for the last 3 days talking about so many important issues around food security. And we hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did.
Yes, and please don't forget to continue sharing your thoughts about the event through your social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, using the hashtag Generation Restoration and hashtag GLFBond 2020.
Yeah, definitely. Keep sharing your thoughts throughout the day. There's other sessions coming later in the day. But thank you guys so much for joining, and stay tuned for all the sessions that we have coming up. And of course, happy World Environment Day.
Yeah, same here. Happy World Environment Day. I was going to say that in the beginning, but yeah. And to you, Renata, it was a great pleasure working with you this past 2 days. I couldn't make it for the first day, but this past day has been really amazing and a great journey for me, listening to these amazing speakers and this wonderful audience that has been tuned in from around the world.
Yeah, definitely. It was wonderful to work with you, Joshua, as well, and to connect with all of you virtually, even though we can't meet. I think it's nice that we have those online connections through those sessions and those really important debates. And it's important to remember in these challenging times that we're going through, we need to keep pushing for connection and for positive change for people and the planet, so we can definitely create a future that will leave no one behind in the future.
Exactly. Leaving no one behind is the ultimate goal. So let's keep connecting, let's keep creating, let's keep pushing for the change we deserve, because we are generation restoration. We can do this and we will do this. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Obrigado. Gracias. Eshegoni. And this is a sign out from us.
Stay safe, everyone. Obrigada. Ciao, ciao.
Yay, right.